am not feeling the greatest today, so if I look tired and crappy, I don't feel great. The last couple weeks have been really rough, so yes. So just know that I don't feel great, but I'm gonna do this video anyway because I need to get this video out and I want to get this video out. Plus I'm tired of sitting on the couch and doing nothing. Hello everybody and welcome to part 2 of my chronic illness story. And so if you haven't seen part 1, you definitely need to go back and watch part 1, otherwise this video will not make much sense. So go back to part 1, I talk about the first 4 years of me being chronically ill. I will put the link down in the description and so you can go back and watch that really quick. So yeah, but if you've already watched that one, you can continue on and watch part 2, which I will start right now. So I put this disclaimer in the first video and I will say it again right now. Because of my chronic illness, my memory is not so great. I've been dealing with memory loss. So I will do my best to talk about my story a little bit. I might miss something, but if I miss something, I'll put it in the comments or put it somewhere for you so you can know. But I'm confident that I will be able to talk about at least the most important aspects of my story here. And so please bear with me once again. I am doing my best. I think I did really good with the first video. I was editing it and I was like, I was pretty good and spot on. So hopefully that will happen again in this video. So thank you for understanding and let's get started. So the first video, I did the first 4 years and now we're going to talk about the next 6 years because it's been 10 years. So my story started in 2010 and so I was in school for 4 years. I graduated on time, mind you. I graduated in 2014 and that's where we are going to start the story. It's either at the end of 2014 or the beginning of 2015. I don't remember for sure. As I mentioned in the first video, I was seeing this wonderful doctor. He was actually a pediatrician that worked with kids with learning disabilities and stuff like that, but he was willing to see me after hearing my story from my mother. And so I was seeing this doctor and we got to the point where we were managing my symptoms and he was pretty much a lifesaver. So early 2015, I was at a normal appointment because I saw him pretty much every 6 months, I believe. I saw him twice a year. And he recently came back from a medical conference. That is a good sign if your doctor is willing to go to medical conferences to learn new things and to develop his skills and just to learn more knowledge. That is a very good sign. That is a very good sign. So yeah, he was at a medical conference and this medical conference was for Lyme disease. And he comes back and he sits down and he looks really, really sad. I don't know how else to put it, but he looked like really, really serious when he came in. And I was like wondering, I'm like, oh great, what happened? I was like, did something happen to me? I don't know. Did some of my blood tests come back wonky? I don't know. And then he sits down and he goes like, I want to apologize to you. And I'm like, what? I was like, what happened? And he goes like, I want to apologize. And then he explains that he went to this conference and he goes like, I think you actually have Lyme disease. And I'm like, what? And I explained to him, I was like, well, if you remember, I was tested for Lyme disease and it came back negative. And then he starts explaining a little bit to me saying like, the CDC has certain guidelines on what determines a positive test for Lyme disease and that you need to have a certain level of antibodies in order for the CDC to proclaim that you have Lyme disease. Pretty much it was like, you could have had a negative test, but it was probably, because of the CDC, they say it's a negative test, when in reality, you probably still have Lyme disease and it's affecting you and everything. And so that was like news to me. And I was like, okay. It was crazy that he apologized. He was like, I should have known this. I should have, he was really sad about it because, as I'll explain later, it is really, really important to catch Lyme disease, really early. really early, because the earlier you catch it, the faster you'll be able to treat it and the easier you'll be able to treat it. And so he was apologizing because he felt like he should have known and he should have been able to help me earlier. It was a really nice thing for him to do, but I felt like, you didn't know, no, I didn't know, nobody knew. So it's like, but the fact that he was willing to be vulnerable and say, I probably made a mistake, which was amazing. And that's what doctors need to do. That's what doctors need to do. And, I wasn't upset. I was just like, okay, if you think I have Lyme disease, what do we do next? And so first we needed to do a proper blood test. And that's what we did. There's a rather expensive blood test that is done by a special clinic. I don't remember exactly what it is, but like they do it in a certain way in order to see, like different from what the CDC guidelines show. And so they do it in a different way just to see if you actually have like any of the antibodies at all. So I did this blood test. So we had to go to a place, they blood dried, then we had to put it in a package and then send it out ourselves to this clinic. And I don't remember if insurance covered it. I don't think it did. But my parents were dealing with most of my medical expenses at this point, but I don't remember how much it was. But it was expensive and insurance didn't cover it. I don't know if that's changed over the years, but who knows. I do this blood test and we wait a couple weeks for it to come back. And it came back with a positive result. You have Lyme disease. And I'm like, okay, let's do this. So what's next? And he goes like, well, we need you to get you treated for Lyme disease. And this was like a major turning point, like a major like realization, saying like, because when I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, it was pretty much a life sentence. I was like, there's no cure for this. You're going to have to deal with this for the rest of your life. But when we got a positive diagnosis for Lyme disease, or a proper positive diagnosis for Lyme disease, it was like, whoa, I could actually get better. And it was like, you think I would be like really excited, but it was like honestly frustrating. It was really frustrating because it was like, I was just ready to deal with this for the rest of my life. And now you're telling me I could get better. It was like, it makes no sense that I would be frustrated, but I was a little frustrated because it was like, I was pretty much doing what I had to do and now I have to do something different. I know, makes no sense, but I was slightly frustrated, but I was excited because he told me I could get better and I wouldn't have to deal with these stupid symptoms anymore. I didn't have to deal with the chronic pain anymore, the chronic fatigue, the emotional issues. Oh, that would have been amazing. I was so ready to like actually have my life back because pretty much chronic illness took away my college experience and my early adult life. And I was just ready to be better. I was just ready to not be sick anymore. And he was like, well, I know a doctor that I met at this medical conference and she is in Ohio as well. And I'm going to refer her to you because she has experience with dealing with treating adults with long-term Lyme disease. And I was like, awesome. And so we got a referral and we set up an appointment with this new doctor. I will have to say, I'm going to put a really important point here. If you suspect that you have Lyme disease, you really need to go to a doctor who specializes in Lyme. And you really need to go to a doctor who is associated with the International Lyme and Associated Diseases Foundation. I don't know. I will put it up here on the screen as ILAD. You need to have a doctor that is associated with this foundation because this foundation has done a lot of research and they've trained doctors in the proper way because the CDC doesn't really recognize Lyme disease as a long-term issue. But it's great that there's an association out here that is actually doing the proper research for it. So I will have to say that. Make sure you go to a doctor who specializes in Lyme, because if you just go to your general doctor like I did and they do a test for Lyme disease, they're just going to go with the CDC guidelines and say that you have a negative result, when in reality you probably do have Lyme disease. So yeah, just putting that there. And so pretty much we got a new direction to take. And so we go to this new doctor. We set up this appointment and we go to this new doctor who is wonderful, by the way. And she has her own private practice and she does it directly out of her home, and it's wonderful. It's cozy, it's inviting, it's loving, it's caring. I love it. Yeah, so I go to this doctor and we have the official consultation and stuff, and I was like, okay, explain a little bit of my story, explain that I was supposedly misdiagnosed with fibromyalgia for 4 years. My current doctor re-diagnosed me having Lyme disease, and now I'm referred to you. And she talked a little bit about the history and like the issues with, treating Lyme disease and misdiagnosis. And she was pretty much just giving me all this information saying it's common for people to be misdiagnosed or to not be diagnosed in time. And so pretty much since I was misdiagnosed for 4 years, I am now in the realm of a chronic Lyme disease. When you have a chronic Lyme disease infection, it's like more embedded in your body, and it's going to be harder to treat it because you didn't catch it in time. It's now widespread through your body, which is, makes sense because my symptoms seem to just progressively got worse as I got along. I started with pain, going to fatigue, emotional symptoms, everything. It was good that I had a re-diagnosis, but it was bad that I was misdiagnosed for so long, and so treatment was going to be, I could get better, but treatment could be difficult and hard, and that's the issue. As we were talking with my doctor, she said that she has the belief that fibromyalgia in most cases is probably Lyme disease that has not been discovered. And that was really, really eye-opening to me. It was crazy that fibromyalgia could be Lyme disease, but people don't realize it. So I'm not a doctor, but if you've had the diagnosis of fibromyalgia, but you didn't get checked out by a Lyme disease specialist, I would definitely suggest you do it if you're able to. And see if you can actually get better. And so after that first consultation, we had to do more blood tests because when you have Lyme disease, your immune system is suppressed so much by the Lyme disease that it's very easy for you to get co-infections. And co-infections are, like it says, other infections that happen at the same time along with Lyme disease. So it's really important to do blood tests to see what you're dealing with. And so we did a lot of blood tests. I feel like I had 50 tests and 30 vials of this. It was intense. I was laying down and giving all this blood to get tested for all these different things. And mind you, I have small veins, but I did it. It was amazing. The nurse was actually quite impressed. I definitely had to eat something afterwards because I was woozy, my goodness. So we did all those blood tests, and it was really interesting when those blood tests came back because it was like, oh, what's positive, what's not positive, everything. Because she was testing a lot of things that I've never even heard of at all. And I don't remember exactly all that came back positive. A couple of them that came back positive, I had Babiosa, Bartonella, which are other bacterial infections. But yeah, Lyme disease is a bacterial infection if you did not know. I had West Nile virus, which was interesting. The CDC likes to say that it's not in the United States, but I haven't left the United States. And then I had Rocky Mountain spotted fever too, which is also from ticks. So I came back with a lot of different co-infections and stuff, which is crazy. And I think this is a really good time to kind of explain a little bit more about what Lyme disease is if you don't know, because I think that might help along with the story. So pretty much Lyme disease is a bacterial infection that you can get from ticks. And so if you're working out in the garden, you are hiking a lot, walking through high grass in an area that has ticks that are infected with this certain virus, then you are at a risk of getting Lyme disease. Lyme disease is usually more well known in the more northeast United States. I don't know how it is in other countries, but northeast United States is usually known for having Lyme disease. But when I got sick, I was in southwest Ohio, and so it's probably a lot more widespread than you realize. And so yeah, so if you're in southwest Ohio and you have symptoms that are diagnosed as fibromyalgia or possibly Lyme disease symptoms, you should probably get that checked out, because I do believe that, those ticks are in Southwest Ohio, and I've known 2 other people that were diagnosed with Lyme disease at my college. So yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it's a bacterial infection that you can get from ticks. And so for me, we realized I actually went hiking with my father a couple weeks before my symptoms started. And so it was a good possibility that I got infected by a tick. So I didn't remember seeing a tick. No, it was probably like really tiny, because, they say that the ticks don't have to be super big. They can be like really tiny, like the size of a poppy seed. So that's pretty much the basics of it. But Lyme disease can also be paired with a lot of co-infections. Like I said, these are infections that are actually happening at the same time. Your immune system is so suppressed, so it's very easy for you to get anything else, or if the tick was carrying any other type of infection. But you also have the issue of if you've had bacterial infections in the past, but they're still like lurking in your body a little bit. If your immune system gets suppressed so much, they can get a full hold again. So you're dealing with a lot of things in your blood, and you got to treat each co-infection, which is crazy. When you're infected with Lyme disease, a lot of people say you need to have the bullseye rash. I don't know if you've heard that, but if you know about Lyme disease, you're just like, oh, if you have a bullseye rash, you probably have Lyme disease. I did not, as far as I know, I did not have a rash or a bullseye rash. If it was on a part of my body I did not look at, like my back, there could have been a possibility of me having one, but you don't have to have a rash in order to be infected with Lyme disease. So yeah, pretty much what all that matters is the symptoms. I got information from the proper Lyme disease website. And so if you have any questions about Lyme disease, definitely go to this association's website. Very, very important. I was looking at WebMD, and there was like a lot of information that was just not right according to my understanding and my knowledge of Lyme disease. And so definitely go to here. Okay, it has more symptoms. Common symptoms of early Lyme disease include rash. We talked about that. Fever. I don't know if I had a fever or not. Headache. Don't remember many headaches. Fatigue. Yes, and then muscle and joint pain. So it's like almost like you feel down, like you have the flu, like you're sick and stuff. And yeah, I definitely felt like that, but I had a lot of pain. The pain was like really severe, like really quickly. It was crazy. But I remember when I got sick, I wasn't really taking care of myself, and I was really working really, really hard. I wasn't sleeping much, like as I was staying up really late, working on homework. I was a music composition major at the time, and so I was staying up trying to write music for my homework and stuff. It was really intense. If you were a music major, being a music major is very intense. You gotta write music. If you're a music composition major, if you're a performance major, you're practicing constantly, and yeah, it's really, really hard. So yeah, at this time when I got sick, I wasn't taking care of myself, so my immune system was probably pretty suppressed to begin with, so that's probably why the symptoms were so like really bad at like right away. So anyway, once the infection spreads beyond the skin, it can affect any symptom of the body, causing many symptoms including debilitating fatigue, headaches, don't remember much headaches, muscle pain, yes, arthritis, like I was having joint problems, numbness, yes, tingling, yes, nerve pain and weakness, oh yes. Heart problems, don't remember many heart problems. Psychiatric symptoms, anxiety, depression, irritability, psychosis, and more. I definitely dealt with depression at that time. Difficulty thinking, memory, language, and math skills, Sleep disturbance, wasn't sleeping well, and problems with vision and hearing. Don't remember, I do remember having issues with vision and hearing in college. My ears would like ring constantly, and then some things would just be really loud. And so I went to a private Christian university, so we had chapel every morning, and sometimes the microphones or music was just way too loud. And so I actually had that was actually like the last couple years of college. I had like earplugs to put in if things were a little too loud, and then sometimes if it was just unbearable, I would just leave chapel. Pretty much, I talked about symptoms that I had in my first video, and so pretty much I was just having the same symptoms that we, were associated with fibromyalgia are the same symptoms that, are associated with Lyme disease. But the difference is that Lyme disease is curable. Fibromyalgia is supposedly not curable. And, Lyme disease can be treated while, fibromyalgia is just managed. So, yeah. So we did the consultation. I did the blood test. Now we had a better idea on what I had and how to treat it. So let's talk about what I did for treatment. So this new doctor also did a mixture of conventional medicine with holistic medicine, and honestly that is exactly what is needed for Lyme disease in my opinion. We started with the conventional treatment. So the conventional treatment for Lyme disease is antibiotics. Obviously it's better, as I mentioned earlier, it's better to catch Lyme disease very, very early, and that way you can take the antibiotics for, I don't know how long they say, a couple weeks. You don't need to be taking antibiotics for very long, and you be able to kill the bacteria that's causing the symptoms and be free and clear of it. But since I was misdiagnosed for 4 years, I would have probably had to take antibiotics for a longer period of time, and I was actually taking a combination of antibiotics. I think I was taking 2 at a time. One, like they were both targeting different bacteria strains. I don't know if we started with 2 right off the bat, but I do remember at least starting with 1 and then having another one at the same time. So we started with the conventional treatment with antibiotics, and since I was going to be taking antibiotics for long term, for a very long time, I also had to do monthly blood tests to make sure that my kidneys and liver were not failing, and so that was fun. And along with the antibiotics, I also had to take probiotics because, the antibiotics was pretty much killing all of the good bacteria along with bad bacteria, so I had to put good bacteria back in it. Before I go any further, I need to say, when you're treating Lyme disease, you need to be taking something that is killing the bacteria. And so as I started, it was the antibiotics that was killing the bacteria that was causing my negative symptoms. And then I also need to be taking, when you're treating Lyme disease, you also need to be taking something to help detox your body. You need to get all that dead bacteria out of your body as soon as possible. And so I was taking a lot of supplements to help just push all that waste product out as quickly as possible. So you can imagine a lot of waste product was coming out. So I was taking supplements to help with that. And then also you need to be taking supplements to help support your immune system. I was obviously taking vitamin D because I was deficient. I don't know what else I was taking at the time. I know I was taking like a herbal blend to help with the cytokine release. Cytokines get released when you're killing the bacteria. And it can cause inflammation. I know I was taking something to help with that. But anyway, I don't even remember exactly what I was taking, but I was taking stuff to help support my immune system during this process because, it's better to have your immune system helping with this process if at all possible. So that's pretty much what you need to do. You need something to kill the bacteria, you need something to detox the dead bacteria, and then you need stuff to help support your immune system. This is pretty much the process of this doctor that I'm seeing. I don't know if other Lyme specialists are like that, but this is a process of what my doctor was doing. But back to the first treatment I did. So I did the conventional treatment with antibiotics, and as you can imagine, it destroyed my digestive tract. And it got to the point where I couldn't eat anything. Like I was taking so many foods out of my diet because it was just irritating to me, that to a point where I'm like, I just can't eat anything at all. And that was really, really, really frustrating because even though I was taking probiotics, I was still taking antibiotics a lot. So it got to the point where I just couldn't eat anything, and I was just nauseous all the time, and I was just not happy. I might have been throwing up a lot. I don't know. But the next, after that, I asked my doctor if we could possibly do a more gentler treatment or something else, because at the beginning, she says, well, I got 2 treatment plans that you can do. You can start with the antibiotics, the conventional treatment, which would be the antibiotics, or you can do the more holistic treatment, which is more natural, but will still do the exact same thing the antibiotics are doing. And so when we had those 2 choices, we obviously chose the antibiotics first because antibiotics would be covered by our insurance. The holistic treatment would have not been covered by insurance, and it's just, oh, the joy of holistic treatment. Anyway, that's an entirely different subject. But yeah, we obviously started with the antibiotics, but then when that just started not working well for me anymore, we asked to be switched to the holistic treatment, and that was great because when we started the holistic treatment, I was able to repair my digestive tract a little bit so I could actually start eating things again, and I wasn't nauseous anymore, and I wasn't throwing up anymore, and yes, that was probably the best thing we could do. Unfortunately, it was just a whole lot more expensive, but so holistic treatment. So we weren't taking the antibiotics anymore, and that meant I didn't have to do those monthly blood tests anymore, which was great. But anyway, so we switched to holistic treatment, and that included herbal supplements and liquid herbal blends. So I was taking supplements, like blends of supplements and liquid herbal blends that were very potent. These things are very potent, and they were pretty much doing the same thing that the antibiotics were doing. They were killing the bacteria in my system, and so I can get it out of my body and stuff. So yeah. So I don't remember when I switched from the conventional treatment to the holistic treatment. I feel like it was like 6 months to a year within treatment that I was just like, ugh. So we switched to a holistic treatment, and things were going well. The treatment was a lot smoother this way. A year into treatment, I realized that the chronic pain disappeared. And that was when we finally, because it was so gradual. So when we finally realized wait a minute, I'm not hurting anymore. And after being in pain for so long, it was the most amazing feeling ever. Most amazing feeling ever. I was I'm not in pain anymore. I can do things that I couldn't do before without hurting myself. Oh my gosh. It was the most amazing thing ever. And pain by far was the worst symptom. It was probably the worst symptom I had at that point. So as you remember, I was dealing with pain, fatigue, and mental symptoms. That was pretty much my main symptoms. So a year into treatment, we realized the chronic pain was gone. And then a couple, this was a span of a couple years because I was doing treatment for a while. Then slowly the fatigue and the mental symptoms started to get better as well. And I was, maybe this was I think it was 3-4 years into treatment. And yes, this is going to take a while if you've been misdiagnosed for a while. So yes, I'm skipping over a lot of things, but yes, it was the best I've ever felt in years. And it was I had a lot more energy. I was able to do a lot more things, and we were starting to see light at the end of the tunnel. And that was, after being sick for so long and finally being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, it was oh my gosh, I am so glad that my doctor re-diagnosed me and I'm able to cure this. Since I was married at this time, my husband and I were making plans for the future. At this point, we're we can get our lives back on track, and it will be amazing. I'm going to stop the story here because there is more to the story, and I was hoping to put it all in part 2, but of course this video has gotten way too long again. And so I'm gonna continue the story in a part 3, and hopefully I will get that up soon. But don't hold me to that because, I've been feeling terrible lately. But yeah, in part 3, I will talk in more detail about my treatment for Lyme disease because I skipped over a whole lot. And then I will give you an update on how I'm doing currently, how I'm doing right now. So anyway, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope it was understandable and informative. And of course, if you have any questions about my re-diagnosis to Lyme disease from fibromyalgia, definitely leave a comment down below and I will do my best to answer your questions. I will see you all in the next video. Bye everybody.